Hey there, everybody. In this video, we're going to do a first look at the Soma Double Cross, a bit of a sleeper gravel slash cyclocross bike. This came in a couple weeks ago. It has some interesting bits. I thought I'd talk a little bit about what attracted me to this bike to review. Again, this isn't a full-on review, just a little bit of a first look overview. I'm trying to do more of these with the products and bikes I review, mostly because oftentimes I get sent a bike and I don't make any content around it until the final review, which could be like months after I receive it. So this is just a good way to let people know what I'm reviewing. Also just the opportunity to make a couple videos from products that are going through the pipeline. This is a gravel slash cross bike from our friends over at Soma / Mary Sales. Steel frame, steel fork, Tongay tubing. So Double Cross, as the name would suggest, was originally conceived as a more cross-oriented bike, cyclocross. But as the times have changed, so has the bike, or at least parts of it. The fork here has 3-pack mounts, not something you would see on a traditional cyclocross bike. This particular build is running 700 by 45 millimeter tires, the Soma Cazaderos, although it is designed so you can also use 650B tires in here as well. Some quirky things you won't see as often these days are, of course, the mounting points here. Here it's got barrel adjusters, but this is the bike that you could run down tube shifters. And I bring this up only because I've been getting emails from some people asking if I can recommend a frame or something that they can still use down tube shifters. And this is definitely a bike you can do that with. The drivetrain is an interesting mix. I did a video on the shifters. These are the S-Ride shifters, 10-speed, but it uses 11-speed Shimano, road pull. And because of this, I'm able to use the Shimano GRX 810 11-speed rear derailleur with a 10-speed cassette. The cassette in the back is 1140, and the bike originally shipped with the IRD Lovo crankset, which has a 40 to 26 chain rings. Other things I like about this bike, very simple external routing, a bunch of utility in the rear as well, so mounts for a fender and a rack. And I know these seem old school, but I've really come to appreciate these old barrel style rack mounts. I've tested some bikes where the mounting points are kind of riveted or welded into the frame, and I feel like those don't always line up flush, making it a bit of a challenge to mount some racks. In lots of instances, although it looks dated, I feel like the barrel style mounts are still supreme. One of the other quirky things about this bike is, it is running disc brakes, flat mount, but the wheels are through axle. And I know this is gonna bother some, but honestly, I haven't had any issues with the wheels or disc rotor rub. All the things that are usually cited as cons with quick release and disc brake. Spouts are all vertically slotted, so everything snaps in just about where you want them. Other interesting parts on this bike is the S-Ride front derailleur. It looks a little bit brutalist and like quasi-futuristic for my taste, but it works pretty good. Pretty intuitive, high-low set screws, as well as a third screw that can take up cable slack. So if you don't have a barrel adjuster somewhere in the system, you can take up a little bit of slack in the derailleur itself. It is a bit chunky and gets a little bit closer to the tire than I would like, but it works fine. Of course, running a Paul seat post, ergon saddle, and a line front radio rack. Why this bike? What's so interesting about it? Well, as you guys know, one of my favorite bikes, one of the ones that I brought with me to Spain, is the Sklar Super Something. And looking at the geo chart, these bikes actually line up pretty close. So I was curious to see how they would compare. Some of the biggest differences is the Sklar has sliding dropouts. These are fixed at 425, which after 2 years of riding the Sklar, I would actually prefer it just to be set at 425 because that's what I like, and I don't want any risk of the wheel sliding forward or backwards. Although it does make tight clearances for the rear wheel, and it makes for a fun, kind of jumpy and lively bike in the back. So this bike in the front has a 71.5 head tube angle, 44 millimeters of offset, and with this tire size, the trail comes out to, I believe, 72. So higher trail when you compare it to a road bike, lower trail when you compare it to a mountain bike. But in that 70 to 80 millimeter trail category is where I like my gravel bikes. So this combination of shorter tucked rear and slightly higher front for me is one of my favorite combinations. The rear makes it fun and lively going uphill, and the slightly lower trail Makes it so that you can kind of descend a little bit more comfortably. It doesn't feel very twitchy. It's a little bit more composed. If you're into really sharp road bikes, then you probably won't like it because it'll feel unbalanced. But for me, like this combination of tucked rear, slightly slack front, it's pretty good. It's my preferred gravel geometry. How's it ride? Does it live up to my expectations? How have the components done? I'm gonna have to save that for the next video for the final review. But if you guys have any questions specifically about the Soma Double Cross, leave those in the comments below and I'll be sure to incorporate them in the final review. So I just wanted to let you guys know what was in the queue. If you guys have bikes that you would like me to review, also let me know. It's been a little bit difficult to get review bikes here in Spain. Shipping to Southern Europe is tricky, to say the least, and also shipping between the UK to Europe is also tricky. So there's a bunch of UK brands I'd love to review, but because of customs and VAT and all that stuff, it becomes a bit of a mess. But as always, I always try my best. I usually just follow my nose in terms of products I like. But if there's something you guys think I should check out, something I missed, especially if it's in the EU, let me know in the comments below. And if you guys dig this content, this kind of bike nerdy, non-racing view of cycling, definitely consider joining us on Patreon. That's how we're able to do this, because we've done some sponsored videos, not a ton, and we kind of exist outside of the the mainstream scope of cycling. All that to say, it's kind of hard to make it as a independent that does quirky stuff on YouTube. But if you appreciate it, join us on Patreon or YouTube memberships. We turned that on recently just to make it a little bit easier. Or hit up the merch store, and as always, keep the supple side down.